Hi everyone, welcome to another weekly tip from SHIFTLog. Hope you have watched our last week's episode where we talked about dynamic forms within SAP Service and Asset Manager. We're going to stick to the same product this week, but talk about another relatively newer feature, asset hierarchy. We all know what asset hierarchy is in SAP. SAP recently has introduced that to SAP Service and Asset Manager as well. Let's first log into the system and see how to access asset hierarchy, and then from that point on talk about why is it such an important feature and what are the use cases. You're now looking at my tablet where you see the home screen of Service and Asset Manager. Just a very brief overview before we delve into asset hierarchy. On the top you see the summary where it says I have 1 work order in progress, 6 open and 1 completed. Just below that, I have all the work orders which I can swipe left and right and select the one I work on. And the bottom, I have additional details which are quite important to perform my day-to-day job. I'm going to go into the work order which have already started, which is a gearbox overheating issue. Once I get into the work order, on the top, I see the details about the issue and its priority. In the middle in the screen, I have the particular asset that I'm working on, in this case, gearbox assembly. Just below that, I have all the operations that I have to execute in order to complete this particular job. For today's topic, I'm going to get into gearbox assembly. The idea here is for the technician in the field or the engineer in the field to get to know the equipment that they are working with. So in this particular case, if I go to the bottom of the screen, I have related work orders. If I click that related work orders, I see there are 3 work orders. So for this particular equipment, there are 3 work orders lined up, including the one I'm working on, to be performed. Let me go a step back and then show you where to access asset hierarchy. So there are 2 ways of accessing asset hierarchy. If I go to the bottom of the screen, I see this option over here, which is to access the hierarchy. At the same time, at the top, I have this particular option as well. I'm going to select asset hierarchy there. Then I'm presented with a screen where by swiping left and right, I can navigate through the asset hierarchy. If I come all the way to the right, I can see the gearbox assembly is connected to a mixer system, which is connected to a mixing area. If I change the selection to if I click the reactor area and click this button over here, it shows the reactor systems. It immediately changes that asset hierarchy arm to a different one. I'm going to go back to mixer area, and then from there I'm going to select this particular mixer system, which tells me that other than gearbox, there are 3 other units over here. The reason why it's important to have this information is that when a technician or engineer works in the field, sometimes you need to not just understand the equipment they are working with, but also the system that is connected. If for example, you're working in a manufacturing plant where the production line works, and if you're working on a motor or a gearbox, all the other equipments within that line has the same purpose, to run that line. So in which case, it's absolutely important sometimes to understand how the other equipments, connected equipments, are behaving. And that's the reason why it's important to have the access to it. What do I mean by having access? So if I click mixer system here, it immediately opens up the mixer system record. This is the master record of the mixer system. If you go further down, I see that, and click related work orders, that tells me there are 2 historical work orders under the mixer system, and there are 6 more orders here lined up to be performed. That's a lot more than what we have seen just before. So if I open up any one of these orders, I can see the history. By this way, the technician or the engineer can understand the history of not only the equipment that they are working on, but also the system above and all the other connected system, which gives them the right context to perform their job. Now, is it required always? Absolutely not. But when you need it, you need it. Right? That's why it's there. Hope it has been helpful and given you an idea as to why it's important to have access to asset hierarchy and the use cases. If you have any questions, queries, please send them in. Thank you ever so much for tuning in, and I'll see you next time.